I call the Honourable Minister, Amy Adams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, the resounding sense that I'm left with in the week after the reading of Bill English's sixth budget is the extraordinary contrast that it represents. Mr Speaker, it represents a contrast between a party and a government that is first of all united, that is effective, and a team that's 100% behind their leader with the opposition benches. It contrasts a party that is 100% focused on the things that actually matter to New Zealanders and to their families, with parties that focus on trivia.
I'm sorry to interrupt the honourable member. Can I just advise the House that members who don't have the floor do not have the right to interject on each other while another member is addressing the House. Courtesy is contagious, members. I call the Honourable Minister Amy Adams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, as I was saying, it contrasts a party and a government that is 100% focused on the things that actually matter to New Zealanders and their families, with a party that is content to spend its time focused on trivia, on scaremongering and on conspiracy theories. Mr Speaker, it contrasts a country that is back in black after the terrible years of the global financial crisis, the terrible economic legacy that we were left by the previous government, and of course the difficulties of the Christchurch and Canterbury earthquakes. A country that is back in black after picking up a 2008 pre-election update where Treasury said, thanks to 9 years of Labour, you are facing never-ending deficits. The Treasury never believed when we took office that New Zealand would ever get back into surplus. Ever. Read the pre-election update. Read the pre-election update. Treasury said you are facing never-ending deficits thanks to the Labour Party and their 9 years of economic mismanagement. But, Mr Speaker, what we have is a country that's back in black. And they're back in black in contrast to what we're seeing in Australia. And, Mr Speaker, as our Prime Minister has said on many occasions, if you want to know what a Labour Greens government will do to your economy, will do to your population, will do to jobs, will do to families, it's called Australia, where they are now facing ballooning budget deficits and critical slashing to public expenditure. By contrast, we are a government that every year on year, has put more money into education and into health and has seen far better results. Mr Speaker, our budget, and this sixth budget of Bill English, and didn't he do a tremendous job, this budget is a contrast to the wish list of the Labour alternative budget. It's a contrast to the unspecified, uncosted waffle that we see from the opposition. If they had anything serious to say to offer to New Zealanders by way of contrast, they would have told us. But no, they would far rather spend their time slinging mud down in the gutter with the rats. You have to wonder, Mr Speaker, you do have to wonder, when are opposition parties going to learn? When are they going to learn that actually the measure of a government's success, isn't how good you are at taking money off New Zealanders and spraying it around, right? If that was the measure of success, if we judged our governments by how much money they pull out of the pockets of New Zealanders and throw around, then no doubt Labour is the party you want. If that's your test of success, who takes the most money out of my pocket and who can spend the most, then you go Labour. But actually, the reason the polls are telling the story they are, Mr Little, for all your shouting, the reason the polls telling the story they are is because what actually matters is the results you get for New Zealanders. When New Zealanders come and talk to me, they don't talk to me about what is the non-departmental appropriation into the police spend. They say to me, are we safe on the streets? Will my kids get a good education? Can I get a new hip or a new knee when I need it? And will my kids get a job? Those are the things that they talk to me about, and on every single one of those heads, this government and every one of us in it can stand proudly and say, thanks to 6 years of prudent economic management, absolutely your children have a much better chance now of getting a job. Absolutely, you have a far better chance of getting a new hip or a new knee if you need it. Absolutely, your children are going to be in a much better position of getting the world-leading education that all 5 out of 5 of our students deserve. Absolutely, you are safer on the streets. That is what matters to New Zealanders. And even in these tough times, Mr. Speaker, that's exactly what we have delivered. Mr. Speaker, one of the most important things I think that we have done, and you are now really starting to see pay off, is setting those what we call the BPS targets, the Better Public Service targets, where for the first time we said to our public service sector agencies what we really care about, actually, and what we're going to measure you on is, are you making a difference to the things that matter? So we've said to the health sector, what we want to know is, are people getting elective surgeries sooner? Are they getting cancer treatment in New Zealand? Are they getting breast cancer treatment and rheumatic fever treatment? Are your children getting access to the education that they need, to good reporting standards for parents? Are more children getting into ECE places? And they are. We've said to the police, we want to know, are New Zealanders safer? That's what we're going to judge you on as an agency, and they have responded stupendously well, Mr. Speaker, because that's actually what matters. Any party that stands up and says, we do better because we can spend more money, misses the point entirely. People care about, are we delivering better results? And, Mr. Speaker, we can stand here 6 years in and say, absolutely, absolutely better health, absolutely the safest streets for 33 years, absolutely better education, absolutely more chance of getting jobs. That is what New Zealanders care about, Mr. Speaker. And this year's budget now shows a record 15 or more than $15 billion going into our health sector. And as Minister Ryle just said, it's not about the number, but what it shows you is we're also getting 40,000 more hips, knees and other elective surgeries every year. 40,000 people a year getting surgeries that they needed that they were going to be denied under the Labour Greens opposition. Mr. Speaker, I want to talk for a minute about Canterbury, the area that I'm from, and I want to reflect on the fact that Jerry Brownlee is doing a tremendous job in what has to be one of the hardest portfolios in our government. For a period of time, I was lucky enough to act as his associate. I've now passed that responsibility to Nikki Wagner, and I know she'll do a tremendous job. But let's look at Canterbury. This budget puts another $50 million into helping the Canterbury recovery. That takes our total, Mr. Speaker, to $15.4 billion of support for Cantabrians. We're standing behind our second largest city. We promised we would, and we are. And I want to just take a moment to look at some of the stats out of Canterbury. As at now, we are looking at 53,500 houses fully completed under EQC, another 47,000 emergency repairs completed. Mr. Speaker, we are currently seeing 90 homes a day completed under the EQC program. 90 homes a day. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, the government is at the moment spending $9 million every day on rebuild receipts in Canterbury. $9 million a day. Mr. Speaker, let me talk for a moment about the environment, because this budget continues this government's real commitment to making sure we actually get results in the environment. Not talk, not rhetoric, not running us down in international media for political points, actual results. So this is a government that is delivering, Mr. Speaker, the most rigorous national system of freshwater management the country will ever have seen. We've committed to that from day one of coming into government, and all the way through it has been a core part of our program. This year's budget, Mr. Speaker, commits another $20 million of new funding to making sure that that water program is delivered and is supported. Because if there's one thing that we have learnt through this process, Mr. Speaker, is that you've got to have good information underpinning good community processes if you're going to get good, resilient results. What we've seen from other governments, the previous parties and previous governments who like to talk about the environment, was that they talked a big game and did nothing. Nada, zero. Were there ever any mandatory requirements on councils for water quality? Not one. Was there ever a study of what the allocation picture was in New Zealand? Not one. Did they even ask the question of what water was coming out of our water bodies and what contaminants were in? No, of course they didn't. They just sat back and said, that's a council issue, but isn't it terrible? This government, Mr Speaker, is delivering. We've put another $20 million in this budget alone. This is a government that is going to see real environmental achievements thanks to the support of John Key, the National-led team and billing the sixth budget. We're back in black, Mr Speaker, and that means New Zealanders have choices, they have the opportunity to get ahead, and that's why they're continuing to support the John Key-led government.
That's right.
Mr Speaker.
I call the honourable member Andrew Little an opportunity to make a contribution.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and it is an opportunity that I relish and seek to serve the good people of New Plymouth and Taranaki well in. Because I want to start by saying this, Mr Speaker, there is nothing greater in this country than the National Party capacity for self-delusion.